executive to account in as far as what we need to see happening. There's a need also to have a well-coordinated approach to address youth development within legislatures throughout. Number two, Chair, we said, and this was dealing with the, how do we propose that the roundtable, this roundtable, what form should it take in 2016? And we said the next roundtable should take a different form. How does it do that? That part of the oversight report from all legislatures should be the one that informs what is going to be the discussion in the next roundtable discussion, so that we are able to see whether there's synergy in between what we do at the national level and what other spheres of government is doing. There should be also a thorough analysis of what existing mechanism, weaknesses and challenges are, so that we zoom straight into them. The third one was that, how do we deal with the additional institutional and political mechanism to heighten our oversight over youth empowerment interest? We said, one, the role of the social media cannot be underestimated. And we should be able to say, what is it that we're able to do to explore communication mechanism so that we empower our young people insofar as information is concerned. We need also to optimize parliamentary democratic offices, but roll out also the role and the issues that we need to deal with at the constituency offices in order to help the young people to continue to engage on their issues. There's a need also to say, what is in the year calendar, what are the young people going to be given space to engage on insofar as legislature, and how do we then mitigate the apathy that we are beginning to see into the young people? Hence, the opportunity to engage on the monthly approach is some sort of a thematic approach on our part. The fourth one was that, what are avenues that we want to leverage on an ongoing basis for reindustrializations towards fundamental economic transformation? Chair, you would remember that we also want to draw courage from what we see happening throughout the world. And if you look at the Asian tigers, 90+% of their economic activity was created from your SMMEs and your cooperatives, driving economic transformation in their own countries. Unfortunately, industrialization in our country is not at that level that we should be able to see what are benefits insofar as beneficiation is concerned for youth empowerment. Similarly, manufacturing is one sector that we should be able to explore. Retail sector is one of the key that must be examined insofar as youth development is concerned. The need also to have stringent oversight on the youth accord. The assumption on the part of the Commission Chair was that the youth accord is there. It has what we think they are welcoming expectation on the part of the young people. But it has not reached its own potential in terms of making sure that young people are taken forward. There's also a need to assess how many young people have applied and have been successfully been able to be allocated funding opportunities throughout funding opportunities that are there. Procurement of services, and we emphasized on this one that particularly you must not talk about your urban areas. Your most rural part of your countries, you have the mining industry now booming in your Limpopo, in your Northwest, but the local communities, to what extent are they benefiting? The social labor plans that are there, to what extent is the mining houses, are the mining houses committed to achieving them? Your social investment in the communities, how far has it been able to be met? We know that there's a mining charter. To what extent we know that there is a report about the mining charter, its limitation on what has been achieved so far, and how far do we then take those issues forward to ensure that there's economic activities in the rural part of our country. Agriculture is also one sector that we need to encourage our young people to go into. Make sure that they go there and it's labor intensive, but it's also having opportunities that young people can be able to tap into to advance their youth development as a country as we move forward. Tourism is one of the sector that we said is highly resourced. It can be a platform for young people to be able to access fund and be able to move forward. Creative art industry. We commended what KwaZulu-Natal has been able to do, encouraging their creative industry to be able to be supported adequately, and we think that other provinces can follow suit. The Breathe Youth Forum is it's a platform that is necessary for young people to be able to, and we know that young people are given space at that level to participate. But with the development in the BRICS, what is it that young people can be able to explore moving forward? And we think that it's a necessary platform for them to be able to do that. There's a need to review and examine existing policies to address skills development and job creation, specifically to address the current challenges. Also a need to look, in our view as the Commission, EPWP was meant to complement what we termed as the endeavor to create skills revolution. And in the assessment of the Commission, we think that the first part, creating employment for them, has been served. The second part, in so far as transfer of skill, has not been achieved. And we think that we need to change and see how best can we make sure that there's a transfer of skill onto the recipients of the EPWP programs, so that when they exit, they are able to be employable in whatever sector that they wish to enter. But they are also having the necessary skill to also, whether zoom into SMMEs or cooperative. So in general, Chair, we want to say, we have considered the establishment of a team to focus on the outcome of this roundtable and propose a roundtable. In what form do we say that? We were thinking that in probably 2 weeks or so, such a smaller team can then sit, consolidate all matters that are raised by the plenary here, program them into tangibles, and be able to say, how do we then make sure that we prepare for 2016? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chebe. Can we give him a round of applause? Then can we take the next commission? Quick 10 minutes presentation. Are they still busy? Whilst they are setting up their systems and so forth, I want to quickly take advantage of the last issue raised by Commission number 1 on processes moving forward, which will then assist today. That instead of us then having discussions on the Commission's report, we then immediately after the reports take then a declaration that would in general be a reflection or will reflect on the issues that have been raised, and then at a technical level then allow the technical team then to do the kind of work that was proposed, and such work in a week's time then to be given to provinces for comments and so forth. Until then, we bring all these things together and develop a strategic document that will then take us forward. Agreed? Okay. Are you ready now? Is there a hard copy maybe that you can speak to? There we go. 10 minutes presentation.
Thanks, Chair. This commission too, and I'm Councillor Percy Fanero Mashim. I'm the reporter of this commission. The commission managed to respond to all the scope that was given to us. The identifying possible overlapping and contradictory approach between the adopted municipal IDP and the NDP. The commission noted that the planning should be a process that mobilize communities who are found in local government, and the communities comprise of the youth who are mostly unemployed, and this also include common financial years within the various spheres of government. This should also be a starting point in terms of the National Development Plan that also stresses mobilization of the communities. Where there is this change between the various plans, the National Youth Development should play an active role. There is a need for the effective mobilization of the IGR because without an effective IGR system, the coordination will not be realized. The commission also noted that the plan activities within the IDP should also be aligned with the youth development program. And this requires coordination within the district and all sectors of department. The youth wish to be a partner in their development and also in agreement that there is a need for a strong voice in local and provincial as well as national government. All these things within the NDP should be done within the education framework. There is a need to package a research and development of the local economic potential with a view to benefit the local business youth. The issue is not necessarily who must do what, but how planning is shared with all stakeholders concerned to create a synergy within the planning processes. The commission further noted that the fiscal dumping by provincial and national department of resources are unfounded mandate to local municipalities. And the commission further resolved that mayors at local municipalities should reach a point where they will not be able to say if it is not an IDP project. It is not be done here, avoid unplanned project. This should also be ensured that funding follows planning, not for the other way around. The National Youth Development Agency and the SAIC are expected to find expression within various programs within the district and local municipality. That will cover sport and recreation, industrialization, health and skills development. There is a need for the youth structures to start from local upwards so as to accommodate the bottom-up processes and clear expression of interest of structures at all levels. The municipality to provide operating office space for local youth structures. This will create a platform for the effective participation of the youth at all levels. The Department of Small Business Development is prepared to establish and align its program to enable the effective participation of the youth structures at all levels. The structures such as ward war rooms and municipal IGR district mayors forum, MUNMEC and MUNMEC at all levels can be a vehicle to promote integrated planning for various spheres of government. The representative from various youth formation indicated that Youth structures should be active within all spheres of government. The municipality to develop a program to popularize IDP processes that will target the youth programs. The Commission also recommend that procurement strategies, especially within the mining areas that might also empower and local people, should be considered. The social labor plans and the IDP do not seem to talk to each other, especially around mining areas. The observation is that where youth structures are non-existent, the planning activities will reflect on that. Failure to implement plans in an indication of capacity constraint, skills development as a strategy for youth development, finding opportunity for youth participation through structures such as local clubs, association, professional groups, etc., etc. The resources constraint should be addressed, especially to local government level. The CDW are also important resource that can also be utilized at local level for youth development in order to get more information. There is a need for the radical economic transformation so as to enable youth participation in local economy. In the absence of the exclusion planning, what is normally called corporate social investment will be misguided. There is a need to help the youth and to understand policy issues that have implication on their interest. I think that was the end of the presentation, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Can you give them a round of applause as well? Then let me, between Honorable Dagmo and Motara, who's ready? Oh, okay. Honorable Motara? You may proceed.
Thanks, Deputy Chair. The committee dealt with strengthening capabilities of youth through sports, arts, and culture. And underpinning all of that was to enhance capabilities, strengthening active citizenry, and providing leadership in order to enhance, using the NDP, of course, in order to enhance what it is that we seek to achieve. In analyzing challenges that are faced in terms of infrastructure, we looked at schools. Infrastructure in schools is a challenge, but the difficulty there is that School sports as a program is at the responsibility of 2 departments. And there's a requirement and a need to align the two. Education is responsible for schools, and then sports or arts and culture, recreation is then responsible for the program of schools. So there needs to be an alignment and proper budgeting. And with the proper budgeting, there needs to be sufficient resources and the funding. We also need to look at the funding model. It has to be revisited. Municipalities, we acknowledge that municipalities have competing priorities. Their responsibility is to provide for basic services. And currently, through MIG funding, municipalities are now responsible for the rollout of infrastructure of sports, but are not responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance of sports infrastructure. SALGA is in a process to lobby for a special dedicated grant for sports, arts and culture, and included with that is maintenance funding. Or they feel that it must go back to the Department of Sports. They must be responsible in the provinces for the rollout of infrastructure and leave municipalities to deal with the rollout of basic services. There has to be a look, we need to look at holistically sports, arts and culture. When we look at a national level, we unite as a nation, that's what we've noted. But when you go down at a provincial level, there's no synergy. At a regional, local, district, municipality, and even at a ward level, there is no streamlined synergy where we are able to really track the process of talent identification from the ward right up until national level, talent identification, grooming, developing the sports and sports persons. And somewhere they fall through the cracks, whether it's provincial through to national, and there isn't that seamless process from grassroots right up to national level. We also need to interrogate what type of sporting codes are being introduced and played at schools, and how do the schools compete with each other. So are they properly placed and or capacitated to be able to compete with each other? We note that the rural and urban divide still remains. Field events are almost non-existent in some areas. Successful sports and sports remains in the predominantly well-supported sports, and that's soccer, rugby, cricket. But for instance, netball, which is a sport that has many, many more participants, is not adequately supported. There isn't much support in the sub-councils in relation to funding, and that will instill patriotism and development. We need to move to unite South Africa through our various cultures and subcultures, and this also needs attention at community level, in the ward, in the school. As much as we all are South Africans, we also have other cultures that are common or that unite us, and also subcultures within those overarching cultures. When we look at sports and arts and culture and how we commemorate these days, we need to avoid becoming an events-driven society. Though we recognize that events are important, they do play an important role, but the events, as we become an events-driven society, there's no cohesive program to drive our various cultures. Departments are not collaborating with each other, and you find them working in silos. They're not integrated to build patriotism. So it's just about the event, we celebrate it, and there's nothing really substantial that comes out of it. It limits, the way the sports are funded currently remains a challenge. It limits the scope of moving funds around to assist sporting codes. And that comes with the conditions of conditional grants. The grant is provided, but with conditionalities, and you have to stick to those conditionalities. And provinces and municipalities aren't able to move funds around to be able to directly support and assist or intervene where they feel there's a need. Looking at oversight and monitoring model, we need to revisit that so that we look at the impact when we deal with oversight and monitoring. Not so much that we adhere and stick to a tick box sort of mechanism, but are we able to assess, using the current monitoring and evaluation system, are we able to assess the impact that is being achieved, if any, in our communities? There has to be ongoing engagement with traditional councils to ensure a common agenda on various issues, and I think that area really needs to be strengthened. The infrastructure, as I've said, there's an outcry for sporting infrastructure. Not only is it either non-existent, it is very expensive to access. It is, in some instances, monopolized by certain sporting bodies or sporting codes. They monopolize it, have access, and this is at the disadvantage of those that are unable to access it. We should consider that sporting facilities to be located under provincial departments, because there isn't a synergy between how municipalities run their sporting facilities, and there's variances between different municipalities. So there's no coherence. There isn't one sort of one-size-fits-all system. We looked at the no-fee schools versus the fee-paying schools. When you look at no-fee schools, the sports facilities are in a terrible condition. The fee-paying schools, or what we currently refer to as your former Model C schools, have got good facilities, they're well maintained, and there's access, the learners are able to use it. Another challenge is that hinder school sports is the transport cost for learners from schools, across schools. If they need to compete between schools, this becomes a prohibiting factor. We also, when we talk about active citizenry, we need to look at ways and programs of how do we bring back playing in the streets as a concept. Because when you play in the streets earlier and stay in the streets later, you also minimize the occurrence of crime. But also that builds active citizenry. And with active citizenry, you will reduce vandalism of sports infrastructure. We want to impress on municipalities that they have to have clear policies on access to facilities, so that we address the issue of monopolizing of one sports code over another, or one sports club over another. Money is also provided through various organizations, such as the National Lottery, are skewed for various reasons. One of them could be the interest and compliance. There has to be a way where we ensure that our players across the country are benefiting, so that you don't have a bigger chunk of funds going, even from corporate and sponsors, just to one sport at the exclusion of another sport. We also need to be able to share facilities and provide access to schools without facilities. So where there's schools that have got facilities, they must be able to be open to allowing access to schools without facilities. And we propose, in relation to that organized labor and the Department of Basic Education engage on voluntary commitments of after hours from teachers to foster and nurture school sport, and also that such agreements must be contained in the formal Education Labor Relations Council resolutions, so that it's monitored and also enforced. We looked at street committees as a tool or a force driving mechanism for active citizenry to enhance community involvement in all facets. Examples are the recreational walks for the elderly, and there's many such examples. But we think that strengthening street committees will revive active citizenry. Languages needs further unpacking, because we link languages to economic exposure and benefit. If you are able to speak two or more languages, you are more exposed to economic opportunities than those that only learn one language. So that needs, and language is a form of common culture and common identity, and we think that needs to be enhanced. In relation to legislation and what Parliament's responsibility and legislators' responsibilities are, we looked at the Northern Cape. They have draft legislation where they seek to amalgamate all federations and councils in the province. And we had thorough engagement or presentation on what they are doing as the Northern Cape legislature, which should be shared as an example of what can be done in provinces to be able to organize sports federations better. We also need to look at the funding model for sports and the proper coordination. Parents also need to be involved in after-school sporting activities at schools, and that will speak to active citizenry and leadership and enhance capabilities. We need to revive the debate about reshaping the school day, and that speaks to additional school nutrition as well as the extension of school hours, so that we don't have a knock-off time of 2 o'clock and nothing else happens at school after 2 o'clock. But they need to become spaces of or environments to enhance capabilities of our learners, youth especially. There has to be clear communication by ward members. There has to be more focus on sustainability. We need to relook at whether municipalities have established youth councils and youth directorates and where they are located, if they are located in the correct place. Sports museums also could be a way of honoring past sports personalities, and that's something that hasn't been done adequately. It's something that we need to look at. We do say that events are required, but they must have a more sustainable outcome than currently. Something that we need to revisit or maybe get a report on is the Mzansi Gold Creative Economy Report, which was spearheaded by the Department of Arts and Culture. On communication, we want to understand how our events and competitions integrated and communicated at all our levels. And also, when we do that, we'll be able to investigate reasons for why certain sporting codes are dying. And an example of boxing was given there. The National Planning Commission needs to do more in terms of circulating the plan, as well as distribute the executive summary and the communication, improve the communication overall of the NDP, because it's also something that is not easily accessible and not everybody is able to speak to it unless you are in these forums. So how do we ensure active citizenry, citizens buy into it more as they are doing currently? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can we do as well? Thank you very much. By the way, who's standing in for Waters? Oh. Mdade? Mbele. Okay, thank you very much. Can you take us through, Honorable Member?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Let me just scroll down here. So our commission was looking at the thematic area of health and social transformation. And I must say thank you very much to the scribe who was assisting, who put all of this in the right formats, because I was just taking a big blob of messy notes, but this is all much neater. So in the first reporting area around achievements, in the course of the discussions, we covered the point that there is some measure of awareness raising using education to raise awareness in schools, such as through the life orientation curriculum and informing youth about available mechanisms to conscientize them about social ills. Although obviously when it comes to the area of challenges, it's quite clear that we need more. We also need to acknowledge that there is enabling legislation and policy in place, as well as a number of programs in place by departments like social development, health, and SAPS to address substance abuse. There was also a point raised about recognizing the role of home-based carers and home-based, and community development workers who contribute to addressing youth development challenges in the health areas, as well as just the general acknowledgement that there is access to health, education, and other social services entrenched in the Constitution as a right, and it was emphasized by one of our commission members that we must always remember that health and education are fundamental rights that should be free and accessible for the poorest, especially in our communities who have nowhere else to turn. In addition, two song centers aid with the delivery of those services or access to those services, as well as the degree of diversion programs we currently have for young people in conflict with the law and youth at risk. And then we were able to map out quite a large scope of challenges that are faced in this area of health and social transformation. The first highlighted was the ease of access to factors that contribute to these social ills like alcohol and drugs. The fact that in as much as we have policies and laws, there's lack of implementation and weak monitoring. And the particular example that was raised was the fact that there's a very clear ban on alcohol outlets being within a certain radius of a school, and yet in many township communities you will find taverns and shebeens that are very close to schools and thus contribute to those social ills. The attitudes of public officials, in particular in the healthcare sectors, who are responsible for providing services, can be a challenge, because if a young woman goes into a local clinic and wants to receive contraception, instead of receiving friendly, responsive and helpful service, she may face nurses who question her as to why she's being sexually active, and instead victimizing her for making a responsible sexual choice. Welfare dependence remains a big challenge, and that points to the need to promote more self-reliance. A very big point that was raised was the underlying structural issue of patriarchy. The fact that the treatment that is given to young men and young women in relation to the problem of teenage pregnancy is a double standard. The young women who get pregnant will face more stigma and sort of bad attitudes, whereas the young men who impregnate get off far more lightly, and that needs to be addressed through gender studies, which is coming now under our recommendations. Another big challenge is negative peer pressure, especially in the way that it may overshadow more positive parental and family influence, the lack of stability and solidarity in communities, as well as a lack of leadership skills to enable young people both to lead their own lives and to lead their peers down paths of more positive behavior. So then we've got quite a list of recommendations. This is just the sum collection of all the points that were raised. I don't think that every member in our commission agrees with every single point, but for the sake of accurate reporting, all of them have been captured. So the first one was a discussion we had around the need for more parental involvement and parental positive influence on young people, the need for stronger monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the laws and policies we currently have, programs to address changes to attitudes by public service officials, promoting ease of access to relevant services like female condoms and other contraceptives. And then in relation to that patriarchy as a challenge point we had earlier, gender studies in schools and constructive sex education, so that young people can manage their sexuality positively and effectively and make mature choices. We had quite a discussion around the importance of social entrepreneurship. In particular, young professionals in these fields who know the field and can come up with ways of addressing the social ills and mentoring other young people. We had a proposal, which is also currently in public discourse, around the raising of the minimum drinking age, as well as in relation to drug abuse, a point raised about the need for a specialized drugs police unit to address, in particular, the drug inflows through our international borders. A general point around recommendations to improve outcomes in this area is ongoing thorough oversight by portfolio and select committees over departments who are stakeholders in youth development. moral regeneration program that needs to be resuscitated and jacked up. And that speaks more broadly to the issue of values-based education that came up over and over again to address social ills in the conversation of our commission. There was also a recommendation for the imposition of harsher sentences for drug offenders, in particular your sort of higher level kingpins, so we can start to have a strong deterrent factor at that level. A recommendation for youth-friendly service points, and the need to revive and expand teacher colleges, nursing colleges, as well as the FETs/TVETs. This one made the public office bearers a bit jittery. A proposal to curb huge salary increases, and as well as the actual salaries of public and political office bearers, so we can channel these funds towards, well, it was in particular towards public officials who work in healthcare, education, and law enforcement. We had also another theme that came up repeatedly was that of facilitating and fostering active citizenship. One of which, or one of the practical means for that being to promote, the full term was popular people's participatory democracy, so that we promote citizens' involvement in their local structures such as CPFs, neighborhood watches, PTAs, speaking of school communities and the role of parents. And some of these are repeating. Yeah, we've got, okay, well, the key point of this next one was just the importance of reversing the top-down approach in governance and service delivery and make it bottom-up, which in itself would foster active citizenship because citizens would feel that they have a stake in influencing the direction of implementation and delivery. Promoting a culture of sports in schools to give recreational opportunities in the afternoons. Linked to values education was harnessing the influence of faith-based and cultural leaders to assist with that drive. In terms of addressing gaps in the public healthcare system, excuse me, there was a proposal for the implementation of the national health insurance. Okay, we've covered that. The issue also again of active citizens and citizen empowerment. There was an emphatic point around empowering communities about the NDP and other policies by filtering them down to communities and creating mechanisms that will ensure that all our people in every community are aware of what are the policies that guide government action influencing their lives. In relation to access to services and empowerment generally for disabled youth, there was an advocacy point for the standardization and promotion of South African Sign Language to assist deaf learners. Yeah, youth offenders, we've covered already, reintegration and diversion programs. Another recommendation was that we, in all these aspects, we must model local and international best practice. There was an example given of the Malaysian Youth National Service Program, and advocacy of the fact that we should implement a national youth service here in this country. In terms of local best practice, there were examples put forward around the Work and Skills Program, the PAY projects, and the MOD centers, which are run by the Western Cape Provincial Government. There was a recommendation for the strong promotion of cooperatives as a mechanism for broad-based entrepreneurship and achieving a more equitable spread of resources and economic empowerment, so that entrepreneurship is not simply about the lone ranger who makes his millions, but you actually have many, many more people tapping into the economic mainstream. There was also a recommendation that we have to ensure more transversal alignment of government programs and events so that we avoid duplication and can sharpen the impact of those interventions. And then also an advocacy for a whole of society approach so that all social actors can optimally play their parts in addressing youth development challenges. Areas for further consideration, many of these actually speak to recommendations. I'm just going to speak in broad themes. So there was skills development, promoting economic self-reliance through entrepreneurship, improving the quality of education, vocational training and skills development, as well as just making sure that government infrastructure and services are easily accessible to aid those who are most in need of them. Oh, sorry, I must raise this because it did come up towards the end. There was a discussion around how the private sector can play a stronger role, and the one proposal given was for a corporate education tax where ring-fenced funding would be collected from that in order to improve education delivery and promote free education for those who most need it. I think that covers everything.
No, thank you very much. I deliberately allowed you to continue because I got a sense that what the commission wanted to do was to accommodate every view that was raised in the commission.
Yeah.
So if you listen, if you look at the report as well, some of the issues are quite repetitive.
Yeah.
So we hope that the commission would not find to have been done an unjust once now the report is consolidated into a program, consolidated program, that other issues might not come out the way they have been presented to us today. Now, thank you very much, Honorable Member. Can we give a member a round of applause? That brings us to the end of the reports by commissions. And as we agreed earlier on, I would just want to, I'm not going to deal with summary of discussions because by so doing I'll be running the risk of reopening. Or is there any intervention?
Chair, it's just my concern. It's subjective because I was sitting in that last commission, that the resolutions that we took were clear. And it seems that they've been diluted by bureaucratic language. And one of them, Chair, to be frank and honest, and I'm pushing this forward, and I think it was about 3/4 of our commission agreed upon this, was to promote, resource, popularize the implementation of the Youth National Service Program. Not to bench, not to copy or model international and local best practice. That's not what we said. And there was a range of other issues, so it's just an issue that I would like to raise as a matter of concern. I also took notes so we can compare notes and formalize that and make it concrete as resolutions of our commission, not bureaucratic language, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, point noted. We will just have to rework some of the processes as I noted earlier on. Honorable Konki, are you ready with the declaration? I just wanted to make a point, honorable members, because obviously after the declaration, whether if there will be some comments or whatsoever, we might not have enough time. No. Let me allow you, Honorable Kong, to then make the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. This is a draft declaration for this meeting, and people can discuss or add. Is entitled to Declaration of the Youth Roundtable Discussions held on 29 July 2015 in Cape Town, Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. This, the first youth roundtable discussion in the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa, notes that youth in South Africa face a plethora of challenges. The school-going youth face pressures of finishing schooling and indecisiveness about whether to continue their studies at further education and training institutions, universities or training institutions. The majority drop out of school before reaching grade 12 and join the army of the unemployed and unemployable youth. Those looking for jobs face many challenges of finding any work opportunities due to high unemployment. Youth unemployment in our country is the major challenge for government and parliament alike. It is said that youth unemployment in South Africa has become an urgent social and economic catastrophe, while some refer to it as a political, economic, and social ticking time bomb. According to the African Union, about 65% of the total population of Africa are below the age of 35 years, and over 35% are between the ages of 15 and 35 years, making Africa the most youthful continent. By 2020, the AU argues that it is projected that out of 4 people, 3 will be on average 20 years old. About 10 million young Africans arrive each year on the labor market. According to the United Nations, Sub-Saharan Africa has the fastest population growth projected between now and 2050, and the highest youth population in the world. It is crucial that governments and parliaments factor this youth bulge into national and social development planning in their own countries. In this regard, the Youth Roundtable acknowledges that according to the World Economic Forum Global Risk 2014, South Africa has the 3rd highest unemployment rate in the world, especially for young people between the ages of 15 and 24 years old. It is emphasized that more than 50% of young people in South Africa between the ages of 15 and 24 are unemployed. That is more than 4 times the figure of Sub-Saharan Africa. This does not account for young people between the ages of 25 and 35 years old. We believe that the African Union Youth Charter provides groundbreaking foundation for this youth discussion. It articulates that, I quote, "Every young person shall have the right to social, economic, political, and cultural development with due regard to their freedom and identity and in equal enjoyment of the common heritage of mankind," close quotes. Thus, we delegates from the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, the provincial legislatures of the Republic of South Africa, including the districts and local municipalities, as well as representatives from youth formations in our country, under the banner of the South African Youth Council and the South African Local Government Associations, gathered in the Old Assembly of the National Parliament on 29 July 2015 to consider, among others, the role of the legislatures in promoting the National Development Plan, Vision 2030 with regards to youth, using the National Youth Policy as adopted by Cabinet as the guiding document for youth development in South Africa. It is our belief that this roundtable discussion is held for a particular purpose to strengthen the relationships between young members of all the legislatures of South Africa from national to local level. It also serves as a link between young legislators as well to interface with youth civil society. It is our considered assertion that the National Development Plan articulates profusely challenges that are faced by young people in the Republic of South Africa. It provides South Africa with youth challenges in economy and employment, education, training and innovation, social protection and health, transforming society through social cohesion and nation building, and building a developmental state capable of driving development as well as fighting crime and corruption. The NDP also expresses its appreciation that young people are an asset and presents our country with an opportunity to boosting economic growth and development in South Africa. It is therefore our collective fight to eradicate inequalities, unemployment, and poverty that is facing the youth of our country. It is our considered view that the discussion about the NDP and youth will not be divorced from other broader and strategic agreements reached and signed by our parliament and government with other African countries and world bodies. These are, but not limited to, Africa Agenda 2063, decision taken at the SADC Parliamentary Forum on Industrialization, UN declarations on youth, and the likes. Our deliberations and experience displayed in this historic roundtable confirms our conviction, commitment, dedication, and oomph that we can, as young parliamentarians in the 5th Parliament, construct a better tomorrow for all our youth. The Youth Roundtable discussion of young parliamentarians and the representative of youth movement in our country acknowledges that in the past Parliament, has organized annual youth parliaments events, and these have been once-off annual events that have not always translated into the day-to-day programs of Parliament and its committees, including parliamentary programming. It is our submission that their recommendations and resolutions have not been incorporated into the work of Parliament, including the work of parliamentary constituency offices. In our deliberations, we are of a considered view that the work of this round table should rest on the giant shoulders of the resolutions and outcomes of the Interparliamentary Union Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians that took place in Tokyo under the theme Democracy, Peace and Prosperity, and the 2014 IPU Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians held in Geneva in 2014. We also acknowledge that the work of this roundtable on youth development is not isolated from the work of associations where our parliaments participate. These include the Commonwealth Youth Parliament, SADC youth structures, youth associations of the AU, and the BRICS. We therefore declare to South Africa and the world to know that 1, we officially adopt the outcome document of the IPU Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians as adopted on 28 May 2015 in Tokyo, Japan. We officially adopt the declaration of the South African delegation to the Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians as our first position and commitment to youth development in South Africa, Africa, and the world over. We officially endorse the Declaration of Employment and Poverty Alleviation in Africa as adopted by the heads of state and government of the African Union meeting at the 8th and 9th September 2004, as well as Africa Youth Decade Plan of Action 2019 to 2018. We fully support the position paper of the SADC Youth Forum as adopted in 2014, wherein the aspirations of the youth in the Southern African Development Community are articulated under the theme Youth Empowerment and Participation for Sustainable Development. We would utilize the outcome document as the roadmap for our youth work in the Republic of South Africa. We commit ourselves to work with the youth of our country to fight poverty, unemployment, and inequalities. We commit Parliament to integrate and mainstream all the resolutions of previous youth parliaments into the mainstream of the work of Parliament, including its committees and constituency offices. We strive to establish a national multi-party forum of young parliamentarians of the Republic of South Africa, which should cascade into all provincial legislatures and councils. We commit to lobby Parliament to re-establish the Joint Monitoring Committee on Youth Affairs that will have the same powers as all other portfolio committees of Parliament. We would make sure that all departments to establish youth directorates at all national, provincial, and local government departments. We commit to go back to our respective legislatures, councils, and organizations to report back on the outcomes of this historic gathering in the history of South Africa. The first Youth Roundtable discussion incorporates all the resolutions taken by the commissions and adopted by this meeting on matters relating to the role of young MPs in the implementation of the NDP and the National Youth Policy 2020, linking the municipal planning framework with NDP for youth inclusion, strengthening capabilities of youth through sport, arts and culture, and health and social transformation through the NDP. The Youth Roundtable of Young Parliamentarians and Youth Civil Society would like to express its appreciation for the well-placed and well-researched presentations submitted by well-known parliament and government officials about the status of youth in South Africa. Our special thanks goes to the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable L. Tsenoli, Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable R.J. Tau, ANC Caucus Chairperson in Parliament, Honorable S. Mohai, National Assembly House Chairperson, Honorable G. Didiza, Youth Desk in the Presidency, Dr. R.B. Shagala, and the Department of Small Business Development, Mr. V. Vala. We would also like to thank the leadership provided by all facilitators, reporters, and the scribers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you acknowledge the presentation? Okay. I see a few comments coming up. Yes, Honorable Member.
Thanks. My name is still Siawam Kolombana. I think the first point that I want to raise in relation to the declaration is the fact that the declaration is very long. I think we need to cut down the declaration. We can't have close to 5 pages of a declaration. The second point that I want to raise is the fact that there is a lot of international summits that were attended by parliamentarians, young parliamentarians, in which we have never thorough reflect on. And as this forum, therefore, we are supporting, adopting, endorsing. We don't even know whether some of those resolution decisions, how much impact that they would make on the decisions that we have taken, because we have never assessed them. So that's the point that I want to make. I think we need to really not trust things that are written in that format. So I'm proposing that part of the cutting on the declaration, we start with those. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chair. The one issue, 2 issues, I don't mean to be nitpicking at the declaration, but there's one sentence that I'm not really comfortable with when it states, "We commit to work with the youth of our country to fight unemployment, poverty, and inequality." I think we can't detach ourselves from the fact that we are the youth. That's what we meant to, that's why we're here, that's why we're invited. So it's almost exactly, we're saying in our resolutions that we want to reverse the top down, but here we're saying we'll work with youth. We are the youth. That's one issue. The other issue that I want us to include in the declaration is to add some of our resolutions from the commissions into that declaration, to make it a profound statement. This is what we did, this is what we came out with, and these are the decisions of the sitting. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just a note, you mentioned earlier that the report back from the commissions will be given to the legislatures for them to discuss and then refer back.
Can you just speak to
Sorry,
the
can you hear me?
Thank you, madam. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the reports from the commissions will be forwarded to the legislatures for their consideration as well. So I think we can't commit legislatures to this until they've had the opportunity to do so.
Okay, I saw 2 hands to the side. You may come through, my Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Just to add a point on the declaration, that perhaps we should have an insertion that speaks to the establishment of a multi-party youth parliament established alongside the same principles of a multi-party women's, is it a women's caucus? Yes, women's forum, to effectively provide oversight. So you try and broaden where you speak about that monitoring body. It must be providing oversight to check if the mainstreaming of youth development and the number of things that we are saying in the declaration are effectively taking place. So maybe that could become one programmatic area that when we come back, we could be able to say this is the kind of progress that has been made. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, you may come through, Honorable Member.
Yeah, thanks very much, Honorable Chair. I just want to second the proposal with regard to the issue of making sure that the declaration speaks specifically to the issues why we are here. I think in the first instance, the reason why we're here to discuss the issues of youth development as to how are they going to be addressed with the NDP as it is a policy perspective of our ANC-led government. I think we need to specifically focus there. The issues of us being referred to the international forums and other regional forums that occurred before the NDP was even adopted by our government, I think we are losing the focus. We need to specifically focus on the NDP and how is it going to address the issues of youth development. And our declaration should speak specifically to those issues. Thanks very much.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, thanks, Chair. I also want to emphasize the point that was made by the gentleman there, sir, that the issues of all these international affiliations and meetings that parliamentarians attended should not feature into this declaration of our sports. I seated here myself, I'm a parliamentarian, but I don't know what was discussed in those forums. You know, you can't now put that in the declaration here on issues that we don't even know about, you know, all the resolutions that were taken in those forums. Can you just maybe take out that? And then the last aspect is the issue of thanking everybody that was here. I believe that should maybe come out there. We'll thank them separately. So I see a declaration of young people who came here. At the end of the day, they are thanking all people that are there. That should be done separately. That's my submission.
Especially the chair.
Thanks.
You'll be the last, Honorable Marubu.
Thanks, Chair. I not disagree with the comments made that the declaration needs to be a bit shortened, but this remains a very good declaration if we can reformulate it, just to shorten it with comments made. It's important, I think, to make that point that youth and NDP, as canvassed in the declaration, that is a mobilizational point. We need an active young people that take charge of the ongoing transformation agenda. So placing youth at the center of this declaration, making that call is an important, I think, observation. So Chair, I don't know, but we must not lose a point that some of the issues of the multilateral forums, without the point that was raised, not to say we support, but I think we need to find a way of placing ourselves in the strive to engage in matters of development, even across or within the regional, within the region, so that youth in South Africa appreciate and can engage with issues across the borders of the South African, across the borders of South Africa, so that continental development remains key without necessarily pledging support, but vigorously engage with these multilateral fora in such a way that we advance consistently our youth agenda perspective in the country. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Marubu.
Chair, I'm really partly covered by the last two speakers. Number one, I think we must also commend the drafters of the declaration. You shouldn't send a message that the entire declaration it's not some good work. I mean, the last speakers made a point that we're part of a global village. We must always also reflect our intentional character as youth in South Africa, even as the role of the youth of young people, even located even in NDP. I think the member is correct there. The last paragraph must be removed completely. You see, the declaration must declare and reflect the spirit and discussions which participated in this roundtable discussions. Like the point he made, there should be some points or reports in the commissions which must be elevated. But the other last point, Chair, is that part of the other important points raised in the declaration must constitute part of the report of this gathering. Not to be necessarily part of the declaration, but we mustn't lose them. They must be part of the report as the end product of the roundtable. But I will also agree with other colleagues or comrades as well that the declaration must be it should be like a very profound statement. It should be eye-catching. It shouldn't be too long. It must declare on what we discussed, Chair. But also to say that we really appreciate the good work as well. We shouldn't critique as if commissions didn't put in good efforts as well. Thanks, Chair.
I'll give the two last afterthought hands an opportunity. Honorable Pinky and Honorable Member, you'll be the last ones on that, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. I've got a concrete proposal because I think that the House is in agreement to say that it must, the declaration must be shortened. So I want to make a proposal that at least if we can get two of the participants who can beef up Honorable Mukongi to cramp that declaration so that we are able to adopt that declaration before the end of the meeting, because it's something that cannot be referred to a later day. This meeting must adopt it today before we leave. So I'm proposing these two gentlemen, the first and the second speaker, to be part of that so that we are able to be spot on, Chairperson, not to waste time. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think the declaration of today should be about today, so that the recommendations and the resolutions that we took in different commissions are a reflect of the roundtable of the 29th of July, which is my birthday today. Any extra thing that will come out after, it's when we send it, like you highlighted that it will be going to the provinces, to the legislatures to have a look at it. But immediately, if we can add some of the informations that we really are not sure what are we committing to, since we haven't seen any document about it, it will be problematic. Now, if really we want to implement this and not take the holistic approach, let's go direct to what we are saying today we want to implement and have a declaration on it.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Maybe just to make 2 or 3 points. One, let me take the responsibility away from the team that worked on the declaration and take responsibility for one simple reason. For every new thing or innovation that you come up with, there will be those challenges or gaps in the process of trying to perfect whatever that we've been doing. And that was our entry point this morning, to say we want to move from the traditional way of engaging young people, and in particular in this instance, begin then to look at the role of young parliamentarians in ensuring that young people's interests are taken not only serious, but a part and parcel of the programs, one, not only of the executive, but in particular of parliament. Look at our role as members of parliament, young as we are, in our day-to-day oversight work. What is it that we then say? How do we position ourselves as young people in those portfolio committees, in those standing committees, in those select committees, in addressing and advancing the interests of young people, as opposed to before, how young people or youth sectoral activities were managed, where we would organize young people and then they come and debate, and to a great extent, even mimic their fathers and grandfathers in the council and in the National Assembly, and not really focusing on. So I want to take responsibility for that and say, yes, we have come together, we have learned something. There are proposals that are then beginning to say, moving forward, let us improve on 1, 2, or 3 areas that we need to look at. Once more, take responsibility on the issue of our participation in the global forums. I don't see, maybe what we should have done was to avail whatever information that is there around the level of participation of parliamentarians on international and global forums. For instance, the IPU. It is just a recently, it's not that long that the IPU in actual fact took a resolution to establish a forum where a global forum where young parliamentarians can come together and begin to deal with issues that affect young parliamentarians and young people internationally. It's not that long that it has happened. So probably coming out of this, we will have then to brainstorm on a mechanism where we will then find a space of ensuring that our provinces, our local councils are not left out of what is happening at a global level. By the way, this parliament has committed itself to participate actively and shape even the global legislative sector. And there was no way that young parliamentarians would have then been left out of the processes. Yes, of course, there has been activities. You know, listening to what members were saying and what has been happening at the global level, reading through the documents, whether it be the IPU, whether it be the what is it called again, the CPA, and other forums in the continent, and what we have done here today, I can put it to you that this is the first country to then begin to do this kind of an activity or work of ensuring that we mobilize the energy of young members of parliament or parliamentarians in beginning then to say what then becomes our role in taking processes forward. Yes, of course, I think there's a general agreement that there will be there's a need for a reworking and the summation of some of the issues as raised in the declaration, but I didn't get a sense of anybody saying we reject the declaration. I think there's a sense that says we appreciate the declaration, but let us look at these shortcomings and improve on it. And I'm raising this against the backdrop of the earlier commitment that we agreed to say that even the reports from commissions, raw as they are, we will then have our technical team that will then further look at the issues that came from the commissions. Craft them in such a manner that they give us a program as national, provincial, and local government. That program will then guide us to then begin to say, how do we ensure that we champion the interests of young people in parliament? Already, there is a suggestion, and I haven't heard anybody opposing that view, of a multi-party forum of young people who will then be given the mandate and further cascade it down to provinces and legislatures. So I take it that with that spirit, we will ensure that once that kind of work has been done, then provincial legislatures will be brought on board and local government. I'm trying to persuade Honorable Pinky not to be hard fast on the issue that on the declaration to be redrafted and be adopted and all that, but rather to say we have gathered today, we have learned, we have received views on how we proceed and implement the processes. I don't know if I'm in order. Can somebody move that I'm in order? If
No.
I'm in order, therefore, thank you very much for your
No, you are in order.
participation. Now I've got an opportunity now to say thank you to your legislatures, the councillors, whoever has availed himself to participate, and your resources and everything, and wish you well and commit that we will continue to improve on dialogue on matters of youth development. Thank you very much. Yeah, the cocktail was yesterday. You were not there.